Good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins,
And I'm Rich Carlson.
and we are the Scanner Guys. Tonight, we have a great show for prepping for fall for your scanner. We're also going to talk about the hurricane that's going
Yeah.
on in Florida right now. Let's take a quick live look at what she's looking like, or what he's looking like right now.
Yeah.
Wow, I mean it's massive, as you can see there.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't too sure where it was going to make landfall. It ended up making landfall south of Tampa.
Yeah. The Sarasota, Bradenton area. That's where I've got family.
Yeah, so it's quite big. They're wondering if it's going to migrate across the state and back into the water again, and then hit land again somewhere
Yeah.
in either
In the
Georgia or
Carolinas.
South
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yeah. The last track I saw was going to go right through Orlando and then back out into the Atlantic. So it's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah, so definitely interesting scanner monitoring if you're monitoring any of the feeds that are available down there on Broadcastify. Let's kind of dive into a little bit of the slides presentation. We'll talk about this a little bit more as well. So we're talking about fall scanner prep for 2022. So getting your scanner ready, and you may want to get yourself ready for events like this, especially if you're in Georgia or the Carolinas. You may want to look at programming your radio with a couple of things that'll be able to help you out. We're going to cover that in a moment. So let's remind you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at the Scanner Guys. And check out thescannerguys.com. You can shop our swag store. You can contact us through the website and sign up for our newsletter. Keep in mind, if you've got support questions and things like that, it's not the best place to reach us. You want to send that over to Scanner Master, and somebody over there would be able to answer those questions. Unfortunately, I'm not always in that email box, so it's I may not get to you right away.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. So we're gonna take a look at Hurricane Ivan. This was the last update, 11 a.m. I'm sure there's been some other updates throughout the day, but a massive storm, as you can see here, going across Florida, basically going from west to east, kind of going back into the ocean again, possibly, and then hitting land again, which is going to be interesting. So for something like this, you want to keep in mind that we've got several tools in our arsenal, being a scanner enthusiast. For example, during the storm, you want to keep in mind that NOAA Weather Radio, which is available on most scanners, or pretty much all of them, you have the ability to set it up as a weather station. When you hear the alert tones going off, there's two things to keep in mind. Watches are basically, be aware of a possible weather event. Warnings means it's more likely going to happen, and you want to
It
take
is happening.
precautions.
Yeah.
So definitely, heed the warnings, and then keep an eye out for the watches. So we don't necessarily have to use a 600 and some odd dollar radio to be able to set up a weather station. You can purchase one of these weather radios pretty much from anywhere. I know Walmart's, Target, things like that do have these weather stations. So if you don't want to dedicate your very expensive scanner to it, but if you do have an extra scanner laying around, you may want to set it up as a weather station.
And check with your local fire department or emergency management agency. Some places will give those alert receivers away for free. The agency I worked for would give them away to anybody who asked for them. And we bought a couple hundred of them, gave them to all the schools, and whatever was left, we gave to anybody who asked for them. And it was a great tool for us.
Yeah, so the other thing to keep in mind when programming your scanner, you may want to set up an additional bank or scan list or favorites list for some other channels. Typically during extreme weather, of course, police and fire are going to have a lot of activity, but your emergency management agencies, of course, are going to play a role in this. There'll be interesting communication there. Your public works, your highway departments, Some of the special ops channels or the event channels will certainly play a role. If there's fallback systems, such as, like a low band system like the Mass State Police, most of the squad cars still have the low band radios in there. The thing is if the trunk system fails completely, or something of that, a lot of departments do have fallback type of channels, and those may be interesting to program into the radio because they'll be scrambling trying to switch everybody over.
Yep.
And resources like that. The other thing too is those channels that are rarely used, like a citywide channel or an ops channel or an event channel, or some of those secondary channels may come to life.
Yeah.
Just because of being able to coordinate activities, whether it be evacuations or cleanup, or even having those interop channels or mutual aid channels may come to life. Because some departments may end up setting up one of those channels so they can communicate with one another.
And if they're on a trunking system, and if the trunking system fails, most of the time they will go into a system called Failsoft. And Failsoft, basically what it does, if the trunking controller fails, the channels, radio channels within the system become like a single site repeater, just like a conventional repeater. And individual groups are assigned to specific channels within that. So if the trunking system doesn't seem to be working properly, program a bank of the trunking channels in a conventional scanner bank and see if you're hearing some traffic back and forth. A lot of agencies don't know how to make that stuff work, but if they know what they're doing and it goes into Failsoft, it can be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, especially a lot of these states, that the hurricane could hit, and you guys are able to prep. If you're in the Carolinas, in between those two states, they have statewide digital trunk systems.
Yeah.
So you may want to go looking on Radio Reference and looking for these other channels that may come to life when, let's say the storm ends up, going into the Carolinas. The other thing to keep in mind is to certainly stock up if you've got a portable scanner, stock up on batteries, especially some alkaline batteries. In case you're not able to charge it, at least you'll be able to listen on your portable radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and set up a power bank for your desktop scanners that work off of 12-volt batteries, motorcycle battery or some sort of a 12-volt power pack that will allow you to run your mobile scanners. You can run a mobile scanner for a week on a motorcycle battery.
Yeah. So a lot of things that you can do, but keep that in mind. Interoperability channels, which I did mention, and a great time to be able to put your local trunking system into search mode. You may discover during the storm that the talk groups that are not listed on Radio Reference, you may be able to spot those channels. So definitely, like if it's a regional or local trunk system, make it a lot easier to be able to find those new talk groups, because or talk groups that have always been there. It's just there's never any activity on there until there's something like this.
And the way Radio Reference works is there has to be activity on those channels for them to be listed in the database. If they're rarely or never been used before, that information won't be out there. So that ID search in your trunking system is really important.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with Radio Reference, if you're not familiar how it works, is basically it's someone like you or I submitting information into Radio Reference. So let's say, Rich discovers, a secondary channel for his local police department, a talk group. Mm-hmm. So he basically goes in, listens, and confirms, yep, this is the channel 2 for XYZ Mayberry Police, this talk group. So then he goes to Radio Reference, fills out the submission, and then the local administrator, which is also a volunteer, updates the database. So, the great thing about that is being able to do that searching, you're able to submit information in. But the thing is you need to confirm it. You need to make sure, listen to it for a while, make sure, you know, that it is what it is, and then you're providing valid information to the database. And as we mentioned a moment ago, battery power, very important, you know, during a storm. You know, you never know how long power is going to be out. And then the other thing that I didn't mention on the previous slide, if you have the opportunity to be able to program in your electric company, your utility company, because it's going to be interesting monitoring them. And the other thing too, it kind of will give you an indication of how close they are to restoring the electricity. Like if they're running into a lot of issues where they got a lot of debris on lines and what such, and it's more of a cleanup effort versus a restoration effort for the utility. I mean, that's another thing to keep in mind, is being able to monitor them. You're eavesdropping in. You're like, oh my God, they're on my street.
And they may have better information about the storm than the public safety agencies too. Yeah,
because I remember when I was growing up in Middleborough, Massachusetts, and monitoring the local gas and electric, they were on the low band. And they would say, you know, oh, I'm on the corner of such and such and such and such, which was my street. And I could hear them. All right, try regenerating the power for this section of town. And then sure enough, I'd hear that on my scanner, listening on batteries. And next thing I know, the lights are coming on. So, which was a great thing. Let's take a look at another slide that we have here. And of course, we're going to jump right into the fall prep. So we'll return back to this conversation in a little bit. First, before we start, we want you guys that are watching live this evening. We have almost 80 people watching live as of the count right now. What shows would you like to see in October and November and December? You know, as for my brain trying to think of more shows to do, I'm having a hard time thinking of some more topics. So you guys, basically this show is for you. In the comments, let us know some of those topics you like to see. You know, would you like to see some shows about the SDSs? Odd things, that are in the hobby. Let me know of all the things that you're interested in as a scanner topic. All right, so let's go into here. So antenna prep. Unfortunately for the people in Florida, I hope that they did this before storm, but you're definitely going to want to do this after the storm.
Yeah, you're going to now, after the storm is going to be repaired, but before the storm, you're going to want to make sure that everything is nice and tight, and as tight as you can make it, because if it isn't, it's not going to be there when you wake up.
All right, so the biggest thing is with those base antennas, you basically want to check it twice a year. First thing in the spring and then sometime in the fall. So you want to make sure you're not up on the roof or wherever you have your base antenna where it's hot as blue blazes or as frigid as a refrigerator. You want to make sure that you're doing this during decent temperatures. So what we want to basically look at when we get up on the roof is we want to check out the overall antenna mount. Make sure there's no issues there. If you've got some sort of tripod on the roof, this is another great thing. You may want to add a little bit of tar where you have those screws and what such, just to prevent any leaks, in case you've had to do anything with that. Then you want to basically check all your connections, make sure everything's tight. Now, keep in mind, you don't want to go on there with a wrench and then you could end up snapping the connection. So you want to make sure just to check it to make sure it's not loose. Do a hand check with your mass. See if there's any play in there. If there's no play, then you're good. And then just check with your hands, each of the nuts there. Make sure they're good.
Don't use tools to tighten your coax connectors, but do use tools to tighten your screws and bolts.
Yeah, and you may want to just do a hand check just to make sure that it doesn't have any play. If it is a little bit loose, break out that wrench and then just do a slow adjustment. You don't want to take a power drill or anything like that, and because you're going to end up snapping the connection, or you may do it just tight enough where it gets a nice wind gust and then it snaps. So just be careful. Don't be super hard on it.
And always use 2 U-bolts, maybe even 3. I've seen antenna masts connected up there with 1 U-bolt, and that's not going to last in a storm.
Yeah, so I actually have, this is what I have on the roof here. I actually have 2 U-bolts, and then I also have secondary with the
pipe straps. Yeah,
pipe straps. Yeah, so I figure, like if anything fails, there's extra protection on there. And that sucker is good and solid there. So definitely check that.
And one other thing, if you go back to that picture again, one thing you did that was very important is you tied down your coax.
Yeah, because with the high winds, that's going to start to bounce.
And for the wire ties, make sure you use UV rated wire ties that are intended to be used outside. The cheap ones are going to degrade after a season.
You do spend a little bit more, but they're well worth it. Like Rich said, the heat, what'll end up happening is it'll get warm and warm and warm, and then it'll just snap. And then you'll find these down on the ground somewhere.
Yeah. Now, if you live in Phoenix or someplace like that, even the UV red ones are only going to last a couple of years. But a standard wire tie, you'll be lucky to last a month in the Phoenix heat. So even in a non-desert environment, you're still going to want to check those every once a year and replace them every couple of years. Their wire ties are cheap.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you want to replace it every so often. And it certainly, it keeps everything tidy and neat up there versus just throwing it up there. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I was able to side mount. There was a satellite dish on here, and I basically used this and side mounted a pole to it, and then I got the antenna at the top. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. Make sure it's grounded. The great thing about it is that this setup is grounded. When they did how the coax cable comes into the house is from the satellite, and the satellite cable they actually grounded it. So certainly a great thing there. So check everything. The other thing you want to do is check the physical antenna. Make sure if you're able to reach it, make sure the elements are not broken or loose. Just take a look to see if there's any wear or tear to the antenna itself. Now, coax is the next thing we want to keep in mind. You want to take a look at the coax. Make sure there's no wear and tear. Look for kinks, damages on the outer jacket. And then, of course, if you're putting in some weatherproofing tape or such, make sure that that's still covering the essential connections. If it's not, replace. And definitely what you want to do somewhere in your garage or somewhere where you have your scanner stuff, of course, have, the grease for the connector. So in case you have to reconnect everything, get that really good weatherproofing tape as well, UV protectant as well. And the other thing, too, is if you haven't used that tape in a while, you may want to buy a new spool. Because after a while, if you've had something sitting for years, it's going to lose its substance to stick.
Yeah, and also that gooey glop, the stickum on that is going to work its way through the tape, and it's going to be, you're going to have the stickum on both sides of it, and it just gets to be a holy mess. So, replace that tape. Dave had a great reminder too. Don't forget your drip loop.
Yep, I have a drip loop, which is out of the shot frame. But yeah, I mean, that's certainly all great things, grounded, drip loop, check the, make sure you got a couple of U-bolts, maybe even a backup to that as well. I mean, you want to keep everything safe and secure. Remember, you're mounting this on your roof. If this thing falls down, it could create some damage on your roof, which you don't want.
Yeah, you don't want. And you want to, the grounding is very important for lightning protection. Joe mentioned with your 2 U-bolts, make sure they're as far apart as possible, which like you had on yours, that one was at the very top, one was at the very bottom. That's going to give you the most lateral support. Use a third one if you've got them. You can't have too many of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that expensive to be safe.
Yep.
You know, I mean, those you can
It's a
purchase.
whole lot cheaper to be safe than than considering the alternatives.
Yeah, and this is definitely the whole topic of tonight's show is being proactive, looking for those issues. Like with a coax check, for example, if you find some damage to the coax cable or some kinks or issues with the coax cable, you know it's a lot cheaper to replace the coax cable than the whole entire
Yeah.
antenna setup. So you catch this, and let's say at the beginning you decided to do like a you know, like a cheaper coax cable. And now you're just replacing the coax. The antenna's in great shape. You
Yep.
may actually decide, you know what, I'm going to do the LMR 400 here because I'm not replacing everything. When, you know, let's say, for example, when you put up your antenna setup, you think of all the money you've spent on the antenna, the pipe, the mounting gear, the coax, the multi-coupler.
Yep.
I mean, it's a lot of money, but if you're just doing, let's say it's been a couple of years, you're seeing that there's issues with the coax, you're only replacing the coax.
Yeah. And yeah, don't skip on the coax, because without the coax, it's not going to work. And with this picture, it's also another very important thing that some people don't do, and I found myself missing it occasionally: end connectors. Inside that center loop, there is a small pin, which is the actual center connection. So basically, you've got your threaded outside connector, which is connected to ground. Then you've got your inside compression connector, which is also part of the ground. Your center conductor is a small pin inside that. If you accidentally push an end connector into a PL259 or an SO239 connector, that center conductor can get pushed over and shorted out or break off. So those end connectors can be kind of finicky. Make sure that that center connector is centered and secure, because that is the weak point of an end connector.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these are all things to keep in mind, you know, when it comes to coax cable. But yeah, definitely, if you need to replace your coax cable, definitely consider doing it. And then if it's a short run, you may want to consider LMR 400. If you did some sort of RG6 or RG6 cable, and you want to do a little bit of an upgrade. I mean, certainly doing that, and try to do it twice a year, like I mentioned, with checking the antenna and the coax, just to make sure there's no issues. It doesn't stop there. Mobile mounts. Now you want to check, you know, your mobile mount, whether it be an NMO mount or a mag mount, just to make sure there's nothing unusual going on there as well. I mean, if you notice, you know, you'll be able to notice right away before you start losing reception. Take, for instance, if you are using a mag mount, you may want to replace it because sometimes water will get inside the base. The other thing, if you're up in an area where there's a lot of snow and they're using salt, maybe a great idea just to replace it every couple of years, because eventually that salt will kind of make its way into there and creating some issues with the connections inside the mag mount. Also, the other thing too, coax cable as well. Make sure you check for wear and tear or damage on the coax cable, because that's going to hinder your reception.
Yeah.
So definitely keep that in mind with mobile mounts as well. And it's certainly going to save you a lot of issues.
And if you're using a magnet mount, they actually work pretty well for a scanner, but there are a lot of people out there who despise magnet mounts with all of their being. They work fine for scanners under most circumstances, but you're going to get somewhat better reception with a trunk lip mount and much better reception with the whole mount. So if you're capable of putting a whole mount in there, that would be a great thing. It would be a great update. But you know, some people don't want to drill holes in their vehicle. So consider upgrading, not just replacing, but maybe upgrading from a magnet mount to a more permanent mount. Yeah, it might cause a little bit of damage to the vehicle, but if you're going to keep the car for a long time, you'll be happy you did.
Yeah, and the other thing too is even with those permanent mount connections, you still want to do a check. You want to make sure there's nothing unusual going on there. And then, of course, check that coax cable, especially if it's a trunk mount. You want to make sure that that coax cable is not getting kinked every time you're closing the trunk.
Right.
And if it is, then you want to look at, you know, maybe doing an NMO mount or making sure the root of that cable is going in a different way so it doesn't constantly be getting kinked.
NMO mounts in the center of the trunk itself actually work very well, and they're a lot easier to install than to put one on the roof. It'll work a little bit better on the roof, but it'll work fine on the trunk under most circumstances, and they're a lot easier to put in because you can get at the back of it a lot easier.
All great things to keep in mind. So let's continue on. So a hot topic for many of you is firmware and programming. I mean, so this is a great time to be able to, if you haven't updated your firmware or programming, to do it in the fall. Being able to do that through the very many software options that are out there, with the programming end of things. As for the firmware, you kind of limited to the manufacturer's software. So with clean slate scanners, on the Uniden side of things, there's going to be a firmware uploader, which you can find links to on Radio Reference. If you go to the wiki page, it'll lead you right to where you need to go. So basically what a firmware uploader looks like, it'll have a list of the scanners, as you can see over on the top left. You'll be able to select that radio and then select the firmware edition and then follow the prompts. Really, as long as you take your time doing this, and if it's plugged in, you want to make sure that if it's a portable radio, you have a fresh batteries in there, or if it's a mobile radio, plug in, make sure you don't unplug it or lose power during the update.
And follow the instructions explicitly. If it says do this, do exactly what they say.
And don't be in a rush.
Yeah, just take your time. It's not that big of a deal. And if you screw up 99 times out of 100, you just start over again and you'll be fine. But, if you do it right the first time, you won't have to worry about the second time.
So the why do this with firmware updates? Of course, it'll fix bugs. It'll add new features, update the system's operating system. Consider, your scanner like to be a little computer. Every so often, whether you're running Windows or a Mac, it requires an update from the manufacturer. The manufacturer's discovered, those things, addressing bugs, adding new features, or just the OS, the operating system, updating it so it'll run a little bit better on your end. So definitely consider doing this. If you have a Home Patrol scanner, such as the Home Patrol 1, the Home Patrol 2, the 436, the 536, the SDS 100 or 200, you're going to do it with the appropriate Sentinel software. It's going to be all done in there. Matter of fact, we're going to show you how to do that in the software right now with basically updating the database and then showing how it's done on the particular radio. So let's take a look at the software. So we're going to put our attention over here and let's take a look at this. So I haven't done it on the Home Patrol software. So if we want to update the database, what we want to do is go up to Update, and then we want to go to Update Master Hpdb. So what it's going to do is it's going to ping Uniden's website, and it's going to download the latest and greatest radio reference database. Typically, this is updated. You can update this weekly if you like.
Yeah, it's typically updated on Sunday nights.
Yeah, typically on Sunday nights. So definitely consider that. It's updating right now. As you can see, the last time down on the bottom left is 8/14 is the last time I've done it. So you can see here it's currently loading the latest database. So hold on one second. We'll give it another minute.
And that database is basically a snapshot of what the Home Patrol database was at that time on Sunday. So if there's been an update done on since last Sunday, it'll show up in this coming Sunday's Uniden update. And the whistlers work almost the same way, but they just use different software, but they work in a very similar method.
All right. And it usually takes about a minute or so, so definitely keep that in mind.
And a lot of it depends on your internet connection and and Uniden's internet connection. So sometimes it's really quick, sometimes it's really slow. So this is the Home Patrol version of Sentinel. There is a separate but very similar version of Sentinel for your 436.
Okay.
The one with the brown icon is for the Home Patrols, and the one with the green icon is for the 436, 536, and SDSs.
All right, which I'm going to then show you what that looks like for the 436 and 536. So it looks very similar here. And what I'm going to do now with the software is basically ping one of my 536s and see if there is an update. So I'm going to go to Update and then Firmware. As you can see here, it shows the 536 HP. I'm going to then click OK. It's going to check the unit and server. It shows that I have the current latest and greatest firmware version for this particular radio. If it did not have the latest and greatest firmware version, this dialog box over here would then show a green bar going across, checking the server, and then basically downloading the firmware. But since this is the latest and greatest version of the software, I can just hit the OK button here. So radio reference, you want to update and check often. So if you haven't programmed in like a statewide digital trunk system or some of the regional systems or some of your local conventional channels, you want to check to see if there's been any updates recently. You know, there may be some new frequencies. If you're not a frequent checker of radio reference, this will be a good time to be able to check to see, comparing your programming on your scanner with what's available in the database. If there's a lot of new stuff, you're missing out on, you know, monitoring that stuff. So definitely check it. This will be a great time to update that favorites list or programming if it's a clean slate scanner by doing that. So with radioreference.com, you know, the great way is you can kind of see, you know, those updates. Just if you're a periodic checker, you can see just in this screen right here that there's some states that are green, and that means there's been a recent update. And the yellow ones means that there's been an update, you know, relatively recent. And then the gray ones, of course, there hasn't been an update in a period of time. So you can see there's several states that there's been an update, and you can actually go down to the county level, and they'll do it to that level. And then you can even dig even deeper once you go into the county level and to the local level, and you can be able to see, you know, what those updates were, because it'll log all those updates.
Yeah, and if you take a look, once you drill down to the state and then into the county level, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, that will be an indicator of when the last updates were and what the last few updates were. And if they've been updated within the last 24 hours, they'll actually be highlighted in green in the grid. So,
yeah, so let's take a look at, you know, how easy it is to be able to create a favorites list in case you've never done it on your own. So we'll go over to the software now and let's take a look. We'll do it with the 536. Oops, we already got it running. So click over here and you can see that you can basically do a favorites list on your own relatively quickly if you haven't done it yourself. For example, let's see here. We'll do Massachusetts. So we'll go into here and Plymouth County. So let's say if we wanted to create a real quick favorites list, we can go into here and then we can click on Plymouth Conventional. It's going to load up all the cities and towns. And let's say if we wanted to do Middleborough and Lakeville. Oops, hold on. Just got to remember how to do this on the Mac. Middleborough. Oh, here we go. So Middleborough. Hold on. Is it Command? Or is it up? I'm trying to do this with a...
Yeah, you're doing that on a Mac using...
Mac using... So basically, you go in there and create a favorites list. Let's say you want a Lakeville. We can append this to a favorites list. We can create a new name. We can call this Plymouth County. So I can go in there and I can do Middleborough, append that to a favorites list. Same thing there. We can do Carver, append that to a favorites list as well. Of course, you know, I would be able to do this a lot quicker if I was on a Windows keyboard, but I'm, so it's a cross in between the two, so it's not doing exactly what I want. And let's find one other town that's near there. So let's do Plimpton. So we can append that to a favorites list as well. So just by me doing that really quickly, you can see here under favorites list, you can see Plymouth County is the name of the favorites list I created. And then you can go down here and you can see, the towns. So let's say I'm not interested in monitoring the middle school. So what I could do is remove favorites list there. Let's take a look at Middleborough. Yet again, I'm not interested in monitoring the two towns there, so we'll remove that. So we'll just keep it to basically police, fire, and highway. And then Carver. Yeah, everything looks good there. Plimpton, same thing there. So that's how easy it is to be able to import in conventional stuff. Now, let's say if I wanted to add to the mix and we wanted to do Mass State Police. So we'll go to statewide. In this part of the state, they're currently using the old Motorola system. So what we'll do is we'll go down here. We know it's D-Troop. And let's say if I wanted to monitor the talk route for Plymouth County, I could append this to the favorites list. Click right there. Now you're going to see down here, we're going to have a whole crap load of sites. So me knowing the area, what I can do is we can remove by doing this and clicking there, and then we can remove right here. Oh, I figured it out. And then what we can do is we unclicked the department, which is that one talk group, and then we unclick the site. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all those other sites and basically have it down to Plymouth County, which is the site we want, Plymouth Bristol County. And then we have that one talk group, which is listed here.
Right. Now, remember, on a trucking system, the site is where the frequencies are listed. And you only want to have the sites that you reasonably are going to be able to hear.
Yeah, and since I'm programming this so the scanner is going to be stationary, there's no reason for me to scan those other sites if I'm not within range. So that's why I eliminated all the other sites and just had it down to that. See how quick it is to basically create a favorites list. I mean, this is something that, for the most part, if you've embraced the database scanners, it's something that you can do. And of course, you're doing this on a computer. So if you end up, let's say I botched up this favorites list and I don't like it, I can easily go back in here and basically go, oh, I don't like this favorites list. Yeah. I can just remove this favorites list. I could just go like this, and it'll go away within seconds. And I can start all over again.
Yeah, and it just takes a couple minutes to recreate it. Go in there, play with it, get used to it, experiment with it, and then try it out in your scanner. Remember, favorites lists take up almost no room on the memory card in your scanner. So don't worry about filling up your memory card or doing it or any problems like that. You're never going to fill up your memory card with favorites lists. And even if your memory card is almost full, it's probably because of recording. The system is the scanner is going to automatically erase the older recordings and replace them with newer recordings. But that's what takes up space on your SD card, is the recordings, not favorites lists. So put as many favorites lists as you want.
I mean, the same thing with, for example, I can show really quickly with using the Butel software, for instance. So let me load up ARCXT. We'll load that up. Give that a minute to load. And then what we can do is show you with the software how easy it is to import in with radio reference. Let me just see if my login is in here for radio reference. Hold on one second.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Joe brings up a very good point here. If you bought your scanner from Scanner Master, of course, we're the only place you would ever buy a scanner from, right? And you buy it pre-programmed, whichever scanner it is, make sure you read the radio before you start programming it, and then save those files. And you can use that as a template to see how to make those and how those favorites lists or groups and systems are constructed, and learn how that's done. Because remember, those are going to be professionally programmed, and you're going to just kind of see how that's done, and then you can kind of copy that same format for your own. So thanks for that reminder, Joe.
Okay, so I have the ARC XT software loaded. So typically what you're going to do is hit the Internet tab here and hit Radio Reference. I've already popped that up. So with your username and password, you're going to put that up here. That's basically going to be, your Radio Reference username and password. Now, you have to be a paid subscriber of Radio Reference in order to be able to import the information in. So you'd basically put in that and then hit Connect, which I've already done. So what I'm going to do is just select real quick the state. So we'll do Massachusetts again, and we'll do Plymouth County just to show you how quickly it can be done. So I'll just go in there. It'll populate that. It'll take a moment to populate the conventional frequencies. But basically, the difference in between using the Sentinel software and this, it's actually looking at the database current, real time, versus looking at a snapshot image of a file that was uploaded to a server on a Sunday. So what we'll do is we'll click right here to Plymouth County, municipalities. I'll select Carver, Lakeville, Middleborough, Plimpton, and I think that was it. So what I'll then do is I'll import it into the software like that. You can see it over there. I can do the same thing for trunk systems as well. So we'll do the same exact thing. What we'll do is Mass State Police. Wait for this to populate. Take about a second. So a little different here where I'm going to, once this loads everything up, I'm basically going to select a couple of things and it's going to import it in. So we'll go over here because we know the site that we want is Bristol, Plymouth counties. And then we're going to go over here and we're going to look for the Mass State Police, D Troop. I'm going to open up the root tree just a little bit here, spread this a little wider. And I know that this is D Patrol 1 is what I want. So then once I've got my site and my talk group or talk groups I want, I can just click import and look at that. I just programmed a conventional system and a trunking system within a couple minutes. So what I can do is just hit the X here. You can see when I open the branches of the root tree, you can see the towns that I've grabbed here, such as Middleborough, Plimpton, Lakeville, Carver. And you can see under sites that I got the Bristol, Plymouth County site, and then I got that one talk group. So within this show, I've showed how to program a clean slate scanner, basic, and also a database scanner. So some really cool stuff there. Let's return back to the slideshow and wrap it up for this evening. And then we'll answer a few of your questions before we end up signing off for the evening. So let's go to the extras for prepping for the fall. All right, we've mentioned this before, and this is certainly a handy thing for an upcoming storm or an event that's going on, that you may be taking your scanner, especially your portable scanner, on the road with you. You want to make sure that you bring new life to your batteries, with new life to your scanner with some batteries. Whether you decide to use rechargeable batteries or alkaline batteries, every so often you want to definitely replace those rechargeable batteries. After so many charges, their life expectancy is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Very much like your cell phone. Your cell phone, eventually the battery life will go down because you've charged it so many times, and that's going to shrink and shrink. Same thing with rechargeable batteries for your scanner. So you may want to replace these maybe once a year, every couple of years, depending on how much you use them. You can, of course, purchase those from Scanner Master as well. Let's continue.
Now, let's go back. When there was a question earlier about the comparison between the rechargeable batteries and alkaline batteries. So rechargeable batteries will typically give you 4, 5, 6 hours of life on a 436 type scanner, kind of average. A set of good alkaline batteries like Duracells or Rayovacs and stuff will typically give you a couple more hours, a little bit more time on a set, just because they are typically going to be a little bit higher current than a rechargeable batteries. It's going to be cheaper overall to use rechargeable batteries, but you're going to get more lifetime between changes with alkaline type batteries.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, certainly, keep that in mind. The other thing that we want to take a look at is carrying cases as well. So the scanner that you typically purchase is pretty expensive. It's an investment, whether it be a 125 AT that goes for $130 all the way up to an SDS 100 or 200 or a TRX 1 or 2. Excuse me, a TRX 1. You want to make sure you protect that investment. If there's a carrying case available, certainly purchase it for that particular radio. I can't stress enough, most of my portable radios, I do have some sort of carrying case on it. If you're looking for carrying cases, Scanner Master is definitely a good place to purchase one of those. They usually have 3 different versions of the carrying case. They have a nylon case, they have a soft glove leather, and then they have the hard leather case. What's in the photograph here on the 125 AT is the hard leather case. So if you're prone to dropping your scanner, you probably want to get something like the hard leather case. It's going to provide you the most protection. If you're not prone to dropping it and you're more so just trying to protect the radio from scratches or wear and tear, nylon case would be ideal, or even the soft leather. Most of the cases are, of course, going to have a clear shield across the keypad and the screen. There'll be openings on the left or right for any types of jacks that are buttons. And of course, there will be some holes down by the speaker, so it won't get muffled for radio transmissions.
And then the SDS 100 case has got ventilation holes on the back that Jonathan and I asked the manufacturer to put in there to help dissipate the heat.
All right, well, that's going to about wrap it up for this presentation of fall scanner prep for 2022. Let's go through a couple of slides and then answer some of your questions. So we just want to remind you that the Scanner Guys are brought to you by viewers like you. You can shop the Scanner Guys merch store at scannermaster.com. And if you're interested in purchasing anything that we mentioned tonight that's available at Scanner Master, make sure you order by using our affiliate link down below. On all of our shows, you'll see an affiliate link for Scanner Master. By using that link and ordering online, a portion of the proceeds will help to support the Scanner Guys shows, such as helping us with web hosting and our streaming service that we use to stream up to social media, and of course help us with any costs that we incur during these broadcasts. So certainly support us by going to the merch store and using the affiliate link down below to make any of your purchases for Scanner Master, whether it be a carrying case, a new scanner, antenna gear. Scanner Master has you covered for all of your scanner needs. Also, we want to remind you that Train Aficionado Live will be coming back the first Wednesday of the month, October the 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to the social media. We'll have an announcement of what the next show will be. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. You can follow Train Aficionado there. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and support our show over there. That's trainaficionado.com is the website for the blog. And we want to remind you that we're going to have another Scanner Guys show coming up Wednesday, October the 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be live, and hopefully we'll do one of your topics coming up in the next show. And we just want to remind you, if you recently redid your shack, we would love to see a photo of it. Certainly, you can submit your shacks by emailing us directly, thescannerguys@gmail.com. Thescannerguys@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys sending in those shack photos in the past. We would love to see some more of those. If we get enough of those, we can certainly use it for a upcoming show, and we can show off your shack and get your 15 seconds of fame right here on the broadcast. So certainly consider sharing your shack to us via email.
All right. Well, we got some couple show suggestions. One of them was packing a go bag, which is very apropos this time of year if you're in a hurricane area or even if you're in a tornado area. And LGR wrote that another idea for show is CB radios. You can listen to CB radios on scanners, so on many scanners anyway. So that's always kind of fun to listen to. Just don't take that stuff too seriously. We talked about that one, and the odd, random, spooky, and unexplainable transmissions. So there are a lot of weird transmissions out there that some people just don't understand and are kind of weird. So that would be a bad show topic. The good, the bad, and the plain weird stuff. A buying show for Christmas. That's a great buying guide. That's always a great topic. If you're going to give your favorite scanner person stuff for Christmas, this would be a good show to watch. So we'll put that in our topic list. And here's another good one. If you've got DMR, NXDN, or Pro Voice, or you're using P25 digital and you've got like a 996 or some other type of scanner, how to set those digital modes up, whether they're trunking or conventional, how to decode unit IDs, talk group searches, all that kind of stuff. So maybe a kind of a refresher on digital modes would be a good one. Nigel is asking, what was the trick key, Jonathan, when you did the bulk talk groups? So basically, it's a shift button will allow you to select from the first one to the last one to select. But which button was it that allowed you to select individual ones?
It was basically the control key on the Mac.
Okay.
So what I'm actually doing with my setup here is I have multiple screens, and in order for me to control this computer here, it's actually connected up to the same keyboard. There's a software that I use to be able to go across, from a Windows machine to a Mac. And of course, on a typical keyboard, I'm able to do it on a Windows keyboard. I was trying to figure out how to do it on a Mac keyboard, which is right here. So that was a little bit of a trick, and then I finally figured out. But it was basically the control button, and I was able to do it. I had to mess with it. Of course, when you're doing a live show, you forget, the Mac versus PC type of thing. But yeah, I mean, that was basically how I did it.
Yeah, I could never remember which button it is because I'm mostly a Mac guy myself as well, and I can never remember which one. So I got to kind of go through the buttons on the bottom every time I do it. All right, so the other Rich Carlson asks if the FEMA channels are active. So if our Florida people are down there, let us know if you hear anything on the FEMA channels. I would imagine that the FEMA channels are going to be really active during the recovery stage, not so much during the storm surge.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that's interesting monitoring is in the recovery. That's going to be another thing where you're going to hear a lot of mutual aid. There's also going to be a lot of agencies working together hand in hand to be able to help with cleanup and what such. You're going to hear a lot of activity before. I'll put it this way: before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm.
Yeah. Yeah, people forget that there's 3 phases of these storms, and all 3 of them are going to be really interesting on the scanner. So let's see here. Shift for blocks, control for individual. Thanks, Joe. And intermod and mixing and overload. So That would be, I think that'd be a good topic, is, when bad things happen to good scanners. It's been a while since we've done a show on those type of problems, so that would be a good one. So, and images too. So, yep, that's it. So, all right. Well, I think that's it, my friend.
All right. We would just want to remind you, like if you haven't already sent in an email to us with your shack photos, you can drop us an email at thescannerguys@gmail.com. Make sure you join us. I'm not too sure what we're doing for a topic for the Train Aficionado show, but don't forget about our Train Aficionado Live coming up next Wednesday, October the 5th. We will be live or have something pre-produced for you. So definitely keep that in mind. We'll announce that on the social media. And then, of course, the Scanner Guys. As always, 2 shows a month. The first show is the second Wednesday of the month, and then the 4th Wednesday. And then Train Aficionado is the first Wednesday, and then the 3rd Wednesday.
Right.
All right. Let's just remind you one more time of our social media. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media, which is on this screen. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, the Scanner Guys. Make sure you shop our merch store, thescannerguyshow.com. You can contact us through the website. And then, of course, sign up for our newsletter. So if we have any early updates on whatever Scanner Master is going to do, more than likely, you may learn about it first through our newsletter. So definitely sign up for that. You may get a sneak peek because, you've signed up, for our newsletter. I'll try to give you guys a little sneak peek of whatever Scanner Master is doing. So you guys will be elite and be able to jump on it before everybody else does. So definitely keep that in mind. We thank you so much for you joining us this evening. We really appreciate everyone watching. Be safe out there, especially with the weather the way it is, with this hurricane that's definitely going to make its way north. Who knows what path it'll take. Be safe out there, and happy scanning. I guess that'll wrap it up for us this evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
Have a great night. We will catch you again next week.
See you then.